Atelier Ryza is the best-selling game in the series to date, and has bolstered developer Gust's place within the games industry, especially when it comes to overseas as well. With successful releases on PS4, Switch and Steam, a sequel, Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy, recently released on those same consoles, plus an upgraded version for PlayStation 5. Here's 5 things you need to know about Atelier Ryza. A lot of JRPGs are based on the premise of grand adventures, epic battles, and a final battle where you kill gods. But Atelier has always stood out in its dedication to quieter stories, and Ryza took this a step further. The theme of the first Ryza game was summer memories, and the staff strove to make the characters appear as normal as possible. And then in the sequel, the characters return 3 years later to revisit these memories while making new ones. While Bandai Namco has Tales of and Square Enix has Final Fantasy, it's neat that Koei Tecmo's trademark franchise is focused on just being nice. However, it was particularly difficult to design characters that feel normal yet distinctive, particularly the protagonist herself, Ryza. Ryza would have a new writer for the series, and it would also now boast a brand new character designer, who was better tasked to tackle this challenge. When artist Toritsumoto was asked, he was immediately worried, since he wasn't good at drawing skirts or the frilly designs that Atelier had become known for. But since Ryza's direction was more muted, he was able to have a go at it, submitting a trial drawing before eventually working his way towards creating Ryza. In fact, Ryza took a surprisingly long time to finalize, with many of the other designs coming much easier. And it all worked out in the end. The staff regard his design work as one of the reasons for the game's surprising popularity. The focus on thighs, which many people picked up on, was the result of the artist asking if he could have a go at drawing whatever he liked. He managed to convince the team, and the fan reaction was so positive that they worked with 3 different manufacturers to create figures of her prior to release, the first time in Atelier series history. Of course, in her character design in Atelier Ryza 2, they needed to figure out what she'd look like 3 years later, and the designer specifically was considering her thighs again. As we see in the final design, they're definitely still a focus. Atelier Ryza is very different from how JRPGs would normally do sequels. Usually when the developers make a sequel, they try and find a way to change it in some way so that new players won't be confused. This usually involves having a new protagonist, with the old protagonist existing as a side character or something. Like how Final Fantasy X-2 follows Yuna instead of Tidus, or how Tales of Xillia 2 starts out with Ludger. Even Atelier games have done this, with each Atelier Iris sequel featuring new characters. But while Atelier Ryza 2 has an expanded cast, you still play as Ryza and all of her old friends. The producers strongly recommend playing the first game, since this new one is all about them reflecting on their last adventure and making a new one. Atelier games have received English dubs in the past, but Ryza specifically doesn't have one. The reasons are pretty clear. Generally, players were already choosing to listen to the Japanese voices, but the main reason was that it was lengthening the time between Japanese and English releases. Like many Japanese properties, they've been trying to shorten the gap, and without having to create a dub, they've managed to shorten it to a month. That's a lot better than titles in the past, which often took almost a year to be released overseas. In this way, both Japanese and English-speaking fans can enjoy the game together. Thanks for watching OTAQUEST in Japan. Feel free to subscribe to find out more about the art and creation of Japanese pop culture.